Could you stop working forever with just $500,000? Most people think $500,000 is nowhere near enough to retire in today's world, but the math says something absolutely surprising. Today I'm going to show you exactly how someone could live off $500,000 in the bank without ever having to work another day in their life. But there is a catch that almost nobody talks about, and if you miss it, your entire plan will collapse within a few short years. The big question we have to answer is simple. Is $500,000 actually enough to sustain a human life in the modern economy? When you hear that number, what do you think? To some, it sounds like a fortune. To others, it sounds like the price of a mid-sized family home and nothing more. How much income does that $500,000 actually produce? Would you run out of money before you reach old age? And most importantly, what kind of lifestyle would that amount of money actually support? It is time to stop guessing and start looking at the hard data. Let's break down the exact numbers of a passive investment strategy that could change your life. To understand how this works, we have to look at the core rule that every financial planner and early retiree uses. It is called the 4% rule. This rule originated from a famous piece of research known as the Trinity study. The researchers looked at decades of stock market data and concluded that a retiree could safely withdraw 4% of their initial investment portfolio every year, adjusted for inflation, and have a very high probability of their money lasting at least 30 years. Retirees use this as the gold standard for financial independence. So if we apply that to our scenario, the math is straightforward. $500,000 multiplied by 4% equals $20,000 per year. When you break that down further, it comes out to exactly $1,666 per month. Take a second to let that number sink in. $1,666. Could you actually live on that? For many of you watching, that might seem impossible, while for others, it might seem like a dream. This is where we hit the reality check. This is why most people think retiring on $500,000 is a total fantasy. In many major cities, rent alone for a one-bedroom apartment can easily exceed $1,600 a month. Once you add in the cost of health insurance, groceries, car payments, and utilities, you are already deep in the red. Then you have to account for the silent killer of wealth, inflation. If the price of bread and gasoline keeps going up, that fixed income starts to feel smaller and smaller every single year. Most people have lifestyle expectations that involve travel, dining out, and buying the latest gadgets. On $20,000 a year, those things are incredibly difficult to justify. But here's the pivot. In the right situation, this strategy actually works. Let's look at scenario number 1, which we call the minimalist strategy. This is for the person who values time over material possessions. To make $500,000 work, you need a very low cost of living. The most significant factor here is housing. If you have a paid-off home or a very low-cost living arrangement, the math shifts instantly. Let's look at a possible budget for a minimalist lifestyle. If your housing cost is $500 or less, perhaps through a small mortgage or living in a low-tax area, you are off to a great start. Add $300 for food, $150 for utilities, $200 for healthcare, and $300 for miscellaneous expenses. That brings your total to around $1,400 a month. That leaves you with a small buffer. The key message here is simple. If your expenses stay below your investment income, the system works. It isn't about how much you have, it is about the gap between what you earn passively and what you spend. But what if you don't want to live a tiny life in a tiny house? That leads us to scenario number 2, the geographic hack. This is one of the most powerful tools for achieving financial independence. Living somewhere cheaper dramatically changes the math of retirement. If you take that same $1,600 a month and move from New York or London to a smaller town in the Midwest, or even further to countries like Portugal, Mexico, or Thailand, your quality of life explodes. In many parts of the world, $1,600 a month doesn't just cover the basics. It pays for a luxury apartment, daily meals out, and a vibrant social life. Geographic arbitrage allows you to decouple your income from your local economy. You are earning in a strong currency or from a global market, but spending in a local economy where the dollar stretches twice as far. Now, how do you actually invest that $500,000 to ensure the check keeps coming? This is scenario number 3, the conservative investor. You can't just leave the money in a standard checking account because inflation will eat it alive. You need a mix of assets. Many people look at dividend ETFs, which pay out a portion of company profits directly to shareholders. Others look at government bonds for stability or high-yield savings accounts when interest rates are favorable. A common approach is a diversified index fund that tracks the entire stock market. This allows your $500,000 to grow while you take your cut. You might see income coming from a combination of dividends, interest, and small calculated withdrawals. But this strategy only works if one thing doesn't go wrong. The biggest risk to this entire plan is something we call sequence of returns risk. Imagine you retire with your $500,000 and in the very first year, the stock market crashes by 20%. Now you only have $400,000 left, but you still need to withdraw your $20,000 to live. You are taking money out at the absolute worst time, leaving less money in the tank to recover when the market eventually goes back up. This, combined with inflation, is the real threat. If inflation averages 3% over the long term, that $20,000 of income will lose half of its purchasing power in about 24 years. If you don't account for this, you could find yourself broke at 70 years old with no way to rejoin the workforce. This leads to the smarter $500,000 plan. You play it safe instead of mindlessly following the 4% rule and withdrawing money. Some experts recommend a 3 or 3.5% withdrawal rate. More money can compound over time. A separate bucket for 2 years cash is another option. Instead of losing money on stocks, you spend it if the market drops. Give your investments time to flourish. If you invest $500,000 in a market index that grows 7% annually and only withdraw 4%, your principal amount should climb. Hedge against inflation. Even if the arithmetic works, most people don't expect a psychological issue: the human side of inaction. Most people imagine sitting on a beach with cocktails for 40 years. Many people become bored and purposeless after 3 months of doing nothing. Wired to participate, solve problems, and be part of a community. When you quit, you lose social structure and daily challenges that sharpen your thinking. Lifestyle creep follows. You spend more when you have the day to yourself. Boredom costs money. If you shop at the mall or online because you have nothing better to do, your $1,600 budget will evaporate in an instant. Thus, the hybrid approach is advised. This is best for most 18 to 50-year-olds. Instead of doing nothing, you use $500,000 as a huge safety net. You invest your money to generate passive income, but you also do some side work or a passion project. You may work 10 hours a week doing what you love or establish a modest internet business. If you combine your investment income with a $1,000 side gig, you have nearly $2,600 a month. Very large safety margin. It protects you from market crashes, covers health insurance, and motivates you to get up. Final takeaway: $500,000 can work provided expenses are reasonable, investments are wise, and expectations are fair. $500,000 can support a human life under certain conditions. Mathematically, most people lack the discipline to do it. Living differently from the crowd is necessary. You must resist the impulse to buy a new automobile or bigger house because your neighbors did. $500,000 doesn't afford a luxe existence or supercar fleet, but it can buy more precious things. Your freedom can be bought. It can purchase you the right to reject a bad employer and a stressful schedule. Does it satisfy you? Your lifestyle price determines the answer. You can control your life by controlling your expenditures. Suppose you wanted more. You desire $5,000 in passive income, but aren't satisfied with $1,600 a month. What if you saved $1 million? The strategies vary as numbers expand. Watch our $1 million retirement strategy breakdown to understand how the math changes as you double your net worth. See you over there.